Hello, Aster. Hi, Aster. Denanesh.
Hi. Morning. Oh, can't hear me. Dananesh. You mute yourself, I think.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Golly, is it cold in Louisiana?
Oh, no, just my house, thankfully. I was really spoiled with my time in Alaska. Excuse me. Anybody? Little nugget.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I had it set to my AirPods. Not helpful. So, Aster, were you talking to me earlier too, and I couldn't hear you because I had the wrong speakers on?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So you live in Lausana for a year.
Yeah, I taught at the teacher training college there.
Oh, that's great.
You're in
I'm
Arba
fine.
Minch.
Yes.
You're
You know
in.
Antalya?
I never went to visit Arba Minch, but I heard about it.
That is my working place.
Where are you from?
I'm from northern part, this just around Addis.
Around Addis?
But yeah, my working place is in Arvamint.
Nice. Yeah, I still have a lot of friends in Addis or Hawassa. So very nice.
Hopefully you will come again. You will meet again.
Yes,
Yeah.
hopefully. I would love to. Right now, maybe not. Maybe in a few years.
Oh. So when you will come, you will mention me.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll have some buna.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, Doug.
Good.
Morning.
I like your background there, Doug. That's the quad at UL. Oh, I guess Jenny has a part of the quad too. You can see that same fountain in both the pictures.
It looks nice, but in the summer, it's about 110 degrees out there. So it's miserable. It was a poor design without any shading, is what I always say. So, and we used to, years ago in the middle, they used to have these nice river birch trees in the middle, and it provided shading over a seating area. But it was all taken out to put in the fountain and kind of rework the center area. So pretty much all the shading is gone now.
Yeah, it could use some shade.
So I've gone ahead and put today's slides in the fellows folder.
Okay. I was not able to upload the recording of yesterday's meeting to the Google because my Google Drive is out of space.
Okay.
So I'm not sure what a good workaround would be. I could put it in my OneDrive and then put a link in a Google Doc, but that's probably not the best way to do it.
Yeah, it seems like a temporary solution because I've been trying to get those important documents away from one person's account because, you know, people transition, we change, we leave, come and go. So I actually meant to talk to Dr. Habib about this. I think I would like to try to use our HydroLearn Gmail for stuff like that. So I guess I guess after the meeting, let me log on to your Zoom. I can download it on my computer. And
It doesn't save. I don't have cloud storage. It all saves to my hard drive.
Oh, bummer. Yeah. Well, then I could give you our Gmail login and you could upload it.
But I'm not sure. Is that how it works? Because even if it's shared, will I still be able to see it in? Like, doesn't it still take up space in my drive if I have a shared folder?
It uses the quota of the person who uploads it. Or
It's
the
the
account that uploads it.
it's the owner.
It's different. It's different than Dropbox, which uses everybody's. But Google uses the account of whoever uploads it. So.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, good. Then
Now-
let me log in with the HydroLearn Gmail, and then I will put it up, and I will put up the pre-workshop videos with that too, and take them off my own so that I have a little more space in my drive. Good morning, Sam and Syed.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning to you too. Thanks.
Syed, are you in Hawaii right now, or are you somewhere else? You're in Qatar?
Somewhere else. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So this meeting will go to 1 a.m. my time here.
Yeah. I was thinking about it. I think we ended at like 8 a.m. in Australia for Sina yesterday. So I really appreciate the dedication of everyone who's in a different time zone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
To me, Qatar is better than Hawaii because the Hawaii it starts at 5 a.m. And so it's too bad in Hawaii, but here it's much better.
What time is it right now in Ethiopia, Aster?
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Yeah.
Where are you coming to us from, Farhat?
Hey, Melissa. Well, I mean, normally from Texas, I would say. Now I'm in Ankara, so there's a
Oh.
huge time difference as well.
So you are in a time difference too. Yeah.
Exactly. So right now it's also 6 p.m. here.
Same to Ethiopia.
Exactly.
Uh,
The
Yeah,
same
that
with
makes sense.
Qatar. Qatar is exactly 6 now.
Okay. So Sayed, are you in Qatar now, or is that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm in Qatar.
Okay.
I'm stuck here, I can't get out. If I get out, I will miss my Fulbright scholarship.
I see.
And
Okay.
they gave me just single entry visa, so I'm stuck here. I
Mhm.
can't do it.
All right. Well, it's 10:01, so I'll go ahead and share my screen. 10:01 in my time zone.
You should start saying it's in 01 and in 02.
N01. That's a good idea. No, I don't want to start on the last slide. All right, so we have 15 people here with us so far. Hopefully everyone figured out the Zoom link. Wasn't too much of an issue.
Just out of curiosity, when you did this last year, was it also online? Or did you have people come?
Yeah, great question. So our plan for last year was initially, because we started planning about 2 weeks before the lockdown started in the US. Our plan initially was to have an on-site 1-week workshop in Park City, Utah. But of course, that very quickly got shifted, and we decided to do the same format last year. So pluses and minuses. Because of that, we're able to open it up to people around the world who might not have been able to travel to Park City, Utah. But also Park City is a pretty beautiful place, so it would have been nice to go there too.
Next year.
Great question, Louis. All right, Ahmad, I think we're ready for you to take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Apparently, I'm not well trained in Zoom, so still have trouble with logging in. Melissa, would you please advance the slides? Okay, so this is, I think you've seen this already from yesterday. Today is July 13th, our second day, and we would focus today on two big items in your module. One is the authentic tasks, how to think about authentic tasks, and how to turn that into learning activities that the students can work on. And I think some of the groups yesterday already started thinking about that, which shows that this is the natural progression of the developing the module. So this is also the most exciting part, I think, in the module, because you will now get to think about what you would want the students to do to be able to achieve the learning objectives that you designed earlier. And hopefully those will make you go back and revise the objectives to can align with the activities that students will be doing. Tomorrow, just for a preview, we'll be looking more on, again, the learning activities, but also thinking about how would you assess the students if they finish those activities in line with the objectives that you laid out earlier. And I think that closes the loop on the constructive alignment that Melissa introduced yesterday. So, okay, next slide, please, Melissa. Today's structure will be similar to yesterday. And I think the next slide details those 3 sessions. So can you advance a slide, please, Melissa?
Sorry, the other reason I put this one in here is to let you know that starting tomorrow, though, we'll be shifting to 2 sessions where you'll have more partner work time in the middle rather than the 3-session model.
Very good, thank you. So today we'll start with some check-in and objectives, and we'll go over cognitive demand of tasks and authentic tasks, like I said. So this will take us the first part of the meeting. And then session 2 in the afternoon, we'll come back, we'll focus on learning activities. How do you translate the authentic tasks that you envisioned into a set of activities that the students can do? We'll also learn some more technology items, iframes. It's a cool feature in How to Learn where you can embed stuff so that the students don't have to leave the module to find information somewhere else. And then session 3 to close the day will be similar to yesterday, where we share and give feedback and then revise the activity that you have done. So next slide, Melissa. So today, we would hope that by the end of the day, you will have compared and contrasted high versus low cognitive demand tasks. And you would have created high cognitive demand tasks and integrated these into learning activities for the students to complete in your module. And also designed one activity that aligns with the objectives and the content that you will put in the module. So, like I said, this is the core of the module, I believe, and it's exciting that to see that you guys have made a lot of progress yesterday already, and the pre-workshop days I think helped us to get where we are today. So, next slide. Melissa, do you want to take that from here?
Yeah, thanks, Imad. So what we were thinking is we'd like to check in because if you're anything like us, you probably spent more time, you weren't able to shut your brain off, and you probably spent more time after the workshop yesterday or maybe this morning, kind of thinking about your module with ideas circulating around. And we wanted you to have some time to share that, but we also wanted you to have some time to hear what other people are doing. So we're going to put you in random groups right now. You're not going to be with your partner. I mean, you might, they were random. And the objective is to just go into this breakout room. You might need to introduce yourself. They might be people you haven't had conversations with yet. And we want you to share kind of like, what is your module about and what kinds of ideas have been circling in your head since yesterday. So again, the objective is to meet some new folks, maybe to hear about each other's modules, and then also to share any kind of new idea that's floated through your brain. Any questions before we put you in the breakout rooms? All right, Jenny, will you open rooms there? But I think it was, at least in my room, we had a great conversation. And we'll do some more of that. Thanks, Martin, for the idea. And we'll, oh, I was playing around in the slides. We will do some more of that, like I said, to make sure that we're hearing about everyone's modules so you can maybe find some things that are useful to you and also have an opportunity to kind of give input at different points and ask questions. All right.
So everyone, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the modules that we have designed so far. So at this point, you may be wondering if we have assessed the effectiveness of these modules. Are they making a difference in students' learnings? And we designed a study to determine if the students self-report a learning gain in their concepts and skills after participating in these modules. And we designed a study using the Student Assessment of Learning Gains survey, which is designed to be modified to suit your needs. And specifically for this case, we made a version of the SALG for every module, and all of those surveys captured the concepts and skills that are aligned with the learning objectives of the module that we were studying. And so we gave these students the survey at 2 time points. The first was pre, so this was before the students used the modules. And then the next time point was obviously post, after the students completed using the modules. And we analyzed these learning gains by examining the differences using a paired samples t-test. We actually examined 13 modules totally, but I have just a few for you on the next slide. So let me break this down for you. Here we have 3 modules that I hand selected. So this is the hydrologic droughts and drying rivers, the introduction to floodplain analysis, and remote sensing applications in hydrology. And if you are curious about what these modules entail, they're available right now. You can go look at them if you'd like. So because we modified the SALG for everyone, we measured the reliability of the survey. So basically what that means, did the students understand what we were asking of them? And it turns out they did. So in educational research, the standard that we're looking for reliability is anything above 0.7, and they all met that target and exceeded it. And here for the means, we used, for the SALG survey, we used the Likert scale on a 1 to 6, 1 being not at all, so saying that the students didn't understand a concept at all, never heard of it before, and then 6 being a great deal, meaning that they understood it very well and they felt proficient and comfortable using it or talking about it. So here we can see for the pre-scores, they're pretty low, 2s, 3s, 4s. The students understand it a little bit, but I wouldn't say they were masters at it. And then towards the end, their means are much higher, much closer to 5 and 6 range, which is good for us. And all of the tests that we found, well, -1, but for this case, here are these. They were all found to be, the differences were found to be statistically significant. And we used a correction method to make our examination a little more vigorous. And then we also looked at the effect size for our modules. And what this means in terms of education research is trying to find like the practicality of a module, seeing if the differences are significant. And the average effect size in educational research is 0.4. And obviously all of ours are very higher than that, very much higher than that. So good news all around, our modules are performing very well. So our results suggest that the students believe they have improved understanding of topics and skills after they use one of our modules.
And I would just add to that the all the modules that we've tested were statistically significant except for the concepts in one module, and that was approaching statistical significance, and it was just underpowered. We didn't have sufficient sample size to detect statistical significance with that test. So I think that when we increase the sample, that one will also become statistically significant. Hey, Eileen, I see a question, and I'm going to let Jenny try to answer it before I jump in.
Yeah, I may have missed this. So this is students self-reporting. They're what? Okay.
Did you answer your own question? Or I can elaborate. But you're right, Eileen. You're on the right track. The students did self-report their own sense of understanding of the concepts in a module and then the skills that they're exposed to through the use of a module. So yes, these are self-reported results.
I'm going to follow up. Are you going to do any follow up with testing knowledge, extending from their self-reported belief, or?
I am not sure for future research for the HydroLearn team. Melissa, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so for us as outsiders to gain access to students' tests at your universities has been a bit of a challenge with some of the institutional review boards. A few have agreed, and so we do have that permission, but we haven't been able to collect those data yet for a host of different reasons. But we would like to in the future. So if you're at all interested in working with me on writing that into your IRB, Eileen, I would be happy to do that with you.
And I actually see a question in the chat from Anne asking if we've done any comparisons to students who didn't use one of these modules. And at this time, we have not, but that is a direction for future research.
Yeah, and so we have tried to ask faculty who teach the same courses as one of our fellows if they'd be interested. But often what has happened is the IRB has then required that that faculty member go through human research training. And so, which is a considerable time commitment on the part of that faculty member. So interest has waned.
I don't know. Anne said she was interested. We've got a timestamp. That's a commitment.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's the other thing too. We
I
did have
meant
one-
interested in the results, not volunteering to do it.
We did have one of our fellows last year who was going to teach the module in one section and then teach similarly, but not using the module in another for us to compare. But I think that with just kind of the trials of the academic year, he wasn't able to make that distinction. Yes, we would be interested in that as well. All right.
All right, next we just wanted to, we wanted to recap the pedagogical frameworks that are guiding all of our work together. So the first is constructive alignment. And as I think you're seeing, it's really a deliberate, purposeful process where we go through the process of aligning those learning objectives with an assessment and also the instructional activities that bring them to that. So if you think about it, the learning objectives make it really clear to the students where they're going, what you expect of them. And then as we go through the process, we have the opportunity to make sure that those assessments clearly measure and show to the student and to the instructor that how well they've met those learning objectives. And then finally, the instructional processes or activities are aligned with that as well to make sure that the students move from the learning objectives or achieve those, and we have the evidence through the assessment to show that. All right, so if you can go to the next slide. The other framework we talked about was the backward design process, and you can see it's connected to the prior one. We begin with the end in mind and identify the desired results, looking at those big ideas and skills that are important that students grasp in your course or your module. Next, we determine, what evidence could really demonstrate that the students have met those desired results. So we think about that first, and then finally plan the learning experiences. So you'll see that we're going to talk about that today, about that culminating assessment task, and then the learning activities and events that would progress to get students to that place. So if you go to the next slide. So you'll see that we've already been through part of this process so far. We've defined the learning objectives to identify those desired results of your module. And today we're going to work more on determining acceptable evidence by crafting on authentic task. And then later we'll actually work on developing those learning experiences and instruction that you provide to them to get there. Next slide, please. So in a minute, we're going to drop you into a room with your partners just for about 10 minutes to go back through those learning objectives, because as you can see, everything really depends on those. We have to make sure those are as refined as possible. So just to quickly recap, we have an optional condition and degree that can help clarify for the students what you expect of them. And then the learning outcome specifies that students will be able to, and then you fill in the action verb aligned to Bloom's taxonomy. And then the task is the noun, what they're doing. And as we've mentioned before, across your module, we're hoping that you can really have learning objectives that represent different levels of Bloom's taxonomy, and that your verbs, your actions should be measurable, not just going for understand, but something more like identify or define. So next slide, please. So we're going to drop you in your partner pairs just for about 10 minutes. So we want you just to revisit those learning objectives, evaluate whether they represent different levels of Bloom's, try to label them with the level. I think many of you that I've seen have already done that, but if you haven't done so, that's a good thing for you to go back and do, and double check that you have those measurable verbs. Any other instructions, Melissa?
And just once you've done all that, if you may still have some extra time before we pull you back in, then you can use that to kind of talk about whatever you want, whatever fits your needs. All right. Any questions before we go into the rooms?
Take more time because I'm not ready.
Oh, great question, Ian. Yes, you can definitely use verbs that are not in the wizard. Yeah, the wizard is limited by the words we came up with on the day that we built it, right? So not that we came up with them just that day, we researched and planned, but yes. Great question. Any other questions for us? Thanks, Ian.
I think Melissa, in one of the groups yesterday, they created the learning objectives in the wizard, but then they wanted to modify it and maybe make it refined. So they eventually copied what the wizard gave them and put it in the free editor. There's another way to embed learning objectives. So the wizard could be just maybe an initial step for you to get it right, and then you can refine it in the other tool for the learning objective.
Yeah, great point, Ahmad. So that wizard is kind of meant to, it's like training wheels. But if you know how to ride a bike, you can take them off. So if you don't need those training wheels to help you, I like the wizard, even though I don't need training wheels when I write learning objectives, because it just helps structure my thinking and pushes me through the process. But then, like Iman said, I'll often copy it out and then refine it somewhere else. All right. Any other questions, Jenny? I apologize.
I'm almost
you on the spot.
close. Okay, opening rooms.
All right, so we'll see you back here around 45 minutes after the hour, whatever hour you're in.
Okay, I missed someone.
Did you put Sina with Sarah?
Yep, just a second. She is 9.
Sarah's in room 9.
Okay.
Thanks, Sina. David, do you want to go to Sebnem's room since Varun isn't here right now?
So Melissa and whoever is here, I guess, and I may need to leave for.
Thanks, Ahmad.
Do you know what one of my major gripes with Zoom is that when you have like the 1 minute warning pop up, and if you're typing and you hit enter right then, it takes you out. And that happens to me all the time. Sorry, Ian. I told Ian how that happens to me, and now he's experienced it.
That is too funny. I can't say that has ever happened to me.
I don't know if I just don't like control my windows well enough or what, but it's super frustrating because I'm usually like talking and typing, and that's like why I'm not paying attention, and then I get kicked out.
Well, Zoom has really been listening to feedback from consumers. They've made a lot of changes. So maybe if you write to them, probably put it on Reddit or something, get lots of people to upvote it, and then you can get some traction. Let us know. I'll upvote it for you.
Okay.
All right. So hopefully that was a productive time for you all in your partner rooms. And I know from talking to some of the groups that you were kind of moving beyond just looking at your learning objectives and starting to come up with some good ideas. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the content groups. Imad has had to take care of some personal issues that were unavoidable that needed to be taken care of this afternoon. And so we're going to take Ahmad's two groups and break them into David and Dan's rooms. So that'll be great because you'll get to hear from some groups you hadn't heard from yet. And what's going to happen is that one partnership will share the authentic task they came up with. If you came up with more than one, just kind of share the one that you're most excited about. Others then will take turns giving feedback, much the way we did when you shared learning objectives yesterday. The person, the team that's sharing will kind of jot down that feedback. You can take it or not. And then we'll have, of course, our work time later, but this is a time to get feedback on your early ideas before you kind of take them too far. Any questions? So we're going to have 5 minutes per team on that. And I'm going to ask, Doug and I will be in each room. So maybe Doug and I can be responsible for timing and maybe setting some time warnings. Otherwise, I could see this really getting out of control time-wise. So our objective is to keep that within those 5 minutes per team to kind of share and give feedback. All right, Jenny, are we ready to open the rooms?
Not quite.
All right, well, while Jenny's fixing that up, will you feel free to unmute or put any questions you might have about this next task in the chat for me. Again, the goal with this time is to just get feedback on that early brainstorming idea. No one expects anything to be finished or polished.
Melissa, it looks like Dan may have dropped the call.
All right.
Nope, I'm here. Testing 1, 2.
Oh.
Testing.
We can hear you. Thanks, Dan. So, Jenny, you must have, there's so many names and the font is so thin in the breakout rooms. I sometimes have a hard time seeing all the names.
I had to drop and reconnect because I got a phone call. And right now, when I get any phone calls, I drop everything because I'm waiting for a certain phone call. So I might have shifted around in your list, Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still here with us, Dan. So I assume you're not a grandfather yet.
That is correct. Not yet.
All right, we'll have to come up with some funny nicknames for Dan when he becomes a grandpa.
Cut it out.
I'm going to go ahead and open rooms because I only have a few people left.
Great. Thanks, Jenny. as great a conversation as the room that I was in did. Hopefully you got some ideas from your colleagues and also kind of learned from seeing what they were doing. Go ahead. As I was talking in my group, I was listening to my group, really, it made me think about this module that some fellows created last year. It's called Snow and Climate, and it's available on HydroLearn. And the very first page in the module summary, and you could see, actually, I'll just point this out, they numbered their sections and subsections, which makes it really easy to identify components. But they kind of situated their problem within real world context and real world stakeholders. And so they wrote, you work for a consulting company and one of your clients is expanding their snow-centered business across the US and is interested in knowing how climate change will impact snow and stream flow in the Intermountain West and the Northeastern US. So that is actually the first sentence that students read in this module. So they see this beautiful picture and they're right away situated within, we're a stakeholder and we're working for a company, a business. So already we know we're oriented towards thinking about helping them make profits, right? That changes kind of what people care about. So as you continue to think about your authentic tasks, I want you to be thinking about two, maybe who is the stakeholder you're asking students to think about? And like, why should they care, right? What do those stakeholders care about? So this morning has got a little longer than I had initially intended it to. So I'm going to give you a kind of an extra hour in your working time, and we'll just kind of shift the way the afternoon looks. Then we'll shorten some of our time there. So what we really would like you to do is to create a Google Doc with at least 3 authentic tasks. You do not need to intend to use all of them. In some ways, it's a kind of a brain dump. We know our first idea isn't always the best one. And then if there's one of those that you really like and you want to start to refine and reflect on it, then definitely take the time to work on that. We'll be popping into your rooms to give feedback. You can email us if you haven't heard from us. If we haven't popped into your room and talked to you, you can email us when you've completed this to make sure that we give you feedback. But if we pop into your room and you've just talked to us, you don't then need to follow up with an email. All right, question, Anne?
Yes, are we going to need to choose one of these eventually, or can we tackle more than one?
Yeah, so you can definitely tackle more than one. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do in our afternoon session. We have 2 more sessions coming up. The first one will be where you'll work together, where we'll work together and talk you through how we set up learning activities within HydroLearn. So if you're interested in that, of course, you can always look at a module and see how the learning activities are set up. Their higher level ones are here. So, you can always go and look at that kind of ahead of time and see. We have kind of very specific parts that we like to include, but we'll walk you through that part this afternoon. But the learning activities are set up around your high cognitive demand tasks. So your goal by the end of the day today is to have one high cognitive demand task that you really like, that you're working towards, and have set up this kind of learning activity template for that task. So that's our by the end of the day goal. If you want to start running on that ahead of time, you should feel free to. Does that roundabout answer your question, maybe?
Sure, why not?
So yes, you can have more than one task. We want you to really focus on one because I want you to have one learning activity written up by the end of the day. But if you and your partners are kind of dividing and conquering, you could think about that a little bit differently. The other thing that we've decided to add based on Martin's idea is this, I'm going to butcher it, Pekakucha. Has anybody heard of this before? It's a presentation where your slide is timed. And so when the presentation runs, you have a set amount of time to get through your slide before the next person goes up. It is a Japanese tradition of presenting, and I've seen it done at several conferences. It's pretty cool. So in your fellows folder, you'll find the 60-second modules slide deck. And when I open it here, you can see that each team has a slide. You can delete your names when you're done and put the name of your module there, whatever you want. But this is your slide, and your goal here, we're going to present these in the very last session today, will be to quickly, in 60 seconds, because it's set to a timer, present about your module. So this will be a way for us to learn about all 11 modules. So during your time now, you're going to be working on your high cognitive demand task. You can start framing out the learning activity if you want. We also gave you a resource on that. There's a learning activity template here in the fellows folder that we added today. And then the other thing you could be working on is your 60-second slide that we'll present this afternoon.
What was the name of the module that you just shared, like the snow one? What was the name of it? With the snow
It is
modeling?
called Snow and Climate.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, that one, it's a really interesting module. I love the way that they kind of set it up. All right, any other questions? Jenny, are we ready?
We are.
All right, so we're going to put you in your breakout rooms with your partner. Remember, it's up to you and your partner to take breaks whenever you want. If we drop in your room and you're not there, we'll realize you're on a break and we'll come back later. So take your lunch, take your bathroom break, dinner, breakfast, whatever time of day it is, wherever you are. All right, so I'll hang out here in case anybody has questions. Otherwise, Jenny will open the rooms for you.
How long is going to be this breakout session, also?
Great question. So let's see, an hour and 45 minutes.
Cool.
So
Thanks.
whatever time that ends up being where you are, Sina.
Sure. I don't know. Yeah. So.
6 a.m. maybe 5 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah. Almost.
All right.
Cheers.
We definitely appreciate Sina's commitment. All right, your room should be open. Does anyone, I see some people still here. Do you have questions I could answer? Esther, were you able to join your breakout room?
I think these strange names on there, Melissa, these are some tech nerds who are joining the team. We're going to be doing a little quick and dirty training session right now.
All right, sounds good.
Ethan and Josh are here. So I'm going to put us in a separate room so we're not bugging y'all. And I'll be back.
All right, sounds good.
As long as a student picked a watershed that had data available, they could run with it. So they could pick something from their hometown if they wanted, or something from across the world. If the data was available, they could use it. And then, like Melissa said, the instructor who used that module decided to leave some, it was a virtual class, of course, but some lecture time available for, just some group problem solving, some group thinking where they could get together and determine or share common problems that they're having and help each other out. But you're right, they were writing separate reports. So there was no opportunity for, copying of work or things like that.
And we certainly can't identify if that's the reason why, but it is one of the modules that showed the most gain pre to post.
I want to hit Varun's question of will students have the option of submitting their report in HydroLearn? At this stage, HydroLearn does not support online submissions, online grading. It doesn't work as a grade book, for example, like you would find with Moodle or Blackboard or Canvas. And so what we have done, those of us that have used these modules in our courses, is, for example, we have something at BYU called Learning Suite. It's basically like Blackboard. And I'll put in a submission link there and a number of available grade points available.
And then for the instructions, when the students, they're used to hitting each one of these throughout the semester. And when they click it on the website, it brings up the instructions. And for this one, it'll just say the instructions are go to this HydroLearn module, complete the module, follow the instructions closely, fill out the template, and submit here. And so they literally are submitting their HydroLearn template that they filled out on our BYU Learning Suite system. And that same thing would work on Canvas or Blackboard or anywhere else. You have your own like online submission thing, or for that matter, to be honest, if you're old school and you want the students to print out the document and hand it in physically, that would work too. But we've just chosen as a team to keep all of the grading and the online submission separate from HydroLearn itself. Does that make sense, Varman?
And I'll actually add that the feature does exist in HydroLearn, and so you might come across it, but we're encouraging fellows not to use it, as Dan said, because so many people may be taking up your module and you don't want to, have someone submit a response who's not in your class. So we are encouraging that integration with your own learning management system, like Dan said.
Ian has brought up a very good question about, are these modules meant to be completed by students independently or completed in class? Again, that's a choice of how you choose to use the module. I know that in a flipped classroom environment, you could send the students home with some reading and some PowerPoint slides and lecture, and then say, now in class tomorrow, we're going to work on this. And then they're also, assuming that you have computers, Ian, where they could all sit at the computer and work on their task. That's pretty cool, because then you and or a TA could be walking around answering questions and sort of filling in the gaps in their knowledge that exist from their flipped, reading and research they did on their own. Or if you want to do it more traditionally, you could do your PowerPoints and your discussions in class and then send this home as a homework assignment or a lab assignment that they do. Well, thanks everybody. That's some really great discussion, and I feel like we're, speaking of filling in the gaps, I feel like there are a lot of little bits of gaps being filled in for the whole group here as we keep looking at these different examples of modules and talking about them in more detail. And I hope you feel the same, that it's sort of, you're getting a more clear picture of what HydroLearn is and how to contribute. So with that, I'll turn the time back over to Melissa and Jenny, I think, are up next.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So I put a link in the chat, and again, you may have to enroll in this course. So if you enroll, then you're going to section 3, considerations for selecting a runoff model, and learning activity 3.1. So I wanted to show you this learning activity because it's very different than a lot of the others that we've looked at so far. So we're not going to spend as much time talking about this because it is different than probably what a lot of you may be thinking about. And this isn't their only learning activity, of course. It's at least the third. But I wanted you to take a look at how they have structured this learning activity. So I'll leave the breadcrumbs up in case you're still navigating through. But take a minute and look through this learning activity to see how it's different. And then as you're looking through it, you can just notice anything you notice about this learning activity or anything you're wondering about it in the chat. So notice and wonder. So I want to direct you first to the instructions. So several scenarios are presented below. For each, identify the runoff model that you deem most appropriate and respond to the following questions. What's really interesting is in this learning activity, the faculty are not asking their students to run any models. They're only asking the students to choose from the models they've learned about throughout the module, which would be most appropriate in each scenario. Yeah, so Kazi pointed out he likes the rubric presented at the bottom. We have played around with the location of the rubric. In the last module, it's before the instructions. That's where our educational evaluator prefers it. So that's why it's there in that module. But you are welcome to make a choice about where your rubric goes. Just be consistent throughout your learning activities so students know where to expect it. What else do you like or notice or wonder about this learning activity? All right, well, I'm going to take the quiet as that you're just thinking really deeply about this, and also that maybe your last meal is settling in your stomach and you're ready for a slowdown. And at that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny. But I just wanted to point out the reason I pulled up that module for you is to just think differently, or maybe that it's possible to think outside of the box for what could be included in a learning activity.
All right. So can I share my screen, Melissa?
Yeah, let's do that actually, because the electricity just flashed here and the thunderstorm's pretty bad.
All right, I'll take control. So here we go. So everyone has been working on learning activities right now. So what I'm going to do with my time with you is show you how you can obviously create, add a learning activity to your module if you haven't done so yet. We just so happen to have a template designed for you that has those key elements that we are looking for. And after we go through and insert a learning activity, I'm going to show you some other cool tips and tricks you can do with that learning activity, like hyperlinking documents, websites, and adding iframes, and all of that fun stuff. So let's start with adding a learning activity template. So what I'm looking at right now is the back end of the Bobacene module. So you won't be able to see this in Studio, but just follow along with me. In order to add a learning activity, we go to Advanced and Learning Activity Template. So here you'll see, the results that we expect, the list of resources that the students will need to complete the activity. The instructions are listed, as well as the summary questions. And it's totally your choice where you decide to put a rubric, but we also have a template for a rubric. And again, that's in Advanced. So add a new component, Advanced Rubric Template. And that's right here for you to edit as you deem fit for your needs. But for now, I'm just going to focus on a learning activity because we will have more time later to go into greater detail about rubrics. I just wanted to show you where they are. So going back to this soil properties learning activity, we have two examples of the different types of hyperlinking that you can do. So whether you are using, we have two different types of text components. So whether you're using the one in Advanced or the one in HTML, it doesn't matter. You will always be able to place hyperlinks by navigating to that component and clicking Edit. And then let's see. So this is where I have hyperlinked a document. Let me make this bigger. There we go. So to hyperlink a document or hyperlink anything, you're just going to use this symbol that looks kind of like chains. To hyperlink a document, you first need to upload it into your files and uploads. So in order to upload a document, you would first go to Content and then Files and Uploads. I like to open it in a new tab so I can quickly flip between the two pages. And then, let's see, what's the name of this document? Template Activity 4.4. You can search for it. There it is. So you see here, you have two options for URLs. In order to hyperlink a document, you always need to select this studio URL. And then once you click it, it's copied. And then I go back to my learning activity, edit my component again, and then I'm going to insert the hyperlink by highlighting the text and then clicking this button here. And then you can add your hyperlink. So highlight, hyperlink, paste. Opening the hyperlinks in a new tab is always helpful for a student because sometimes if they navigate away from the page, it's hard to get back to where they were. So whenever it is possible, when you are making a hyperlink, I strongly suggest that you do open a new tab just to save some headaches. And you can hyperlink websites similarly. You just highlight the text, click the hyperlink button here, and then paste the URL and click save. So that's for the hyperlinks. But if you have a website that you are frequently referencing, you have the option to embed it in your unit as an iframe. And basically all that means is that the students won't have to navigate anywhere else to interact with that website that you want them to see. So the way that you can add an iframe is HTML iframe tool. So add new component, HTML iframe tool. And this comes preloaded with some code, some text. You don't need all of that. So in order to edit the iframe, I go to, I edit the component, obviously I click HTML, and I do not need lines 1 through 25. This is up to you. If you want to include text in your iframe, that's how you would do it. But I like to keep them short, sweet, and to the point. So this is the only thing that I will keep is the iframe itself. So obviously from this little demo that they provide, you're going to need to change the title, change the source code here, and it's best to also change the width and height. I found that 900 seems to be the magic number for width. Let's see. And something else that you can also enable if you want is scrolling. So that's particularly useful if the web page happens to be very long. So this just allows the scroll bar on the side to pop up. And that's how you would edit an iframe.
Jenny, can you put an example iframe in there for us?
Yes, I can actually show you one. So let me see here. Okay. So another helpful thing about iframes is that if you find it's something that your students need to reference more than once, it can be helpful to put it as a page. And I'll show you an example. This one works. Of the iframe. So in order to create this, I would copy the code from the tool itself, and then replace the title, the SRC code here, width and height. And I'll show you how to do that exactly. So I don't want all of this. Let's say I want to hyperlink Wiki Watersheds. So I'm just going to grab this URL, which is where I would be navigating the students to, and I'm going to put that code right here. For the title, we can put Wiki Watersheds. And again, the magic number seems to be 900 if you're inside of a unit. If you're in a page, you can make it a little larger. I find that the best thing to do is just trial and error. So let me go ahead and save it. There it is. And it's embedded here. And I'm actually going to see what it looks like if a student looked at this page right now. So I'm going to click preview. And here it is. So it looks like it's been cut off in the width. So to change that, I would just go back to my iframe and make it maybe 1200 or something. Right, width, here we go. Let's see. So obviously the view isn't really going to change for us in Studio. That's why I always go back and see what it's going to look like for a student.
You clicked live instead of preview.
Thank you. Okay. So there we go. Yes, now you can see the whole thing, and the students can interact with this without having to navigate away from HydroLearn. And I was speaking a second ago about pages. So pages are these tabs up top. No matter where a student is inside of the module, these will always be available to them. So regardless of what unit they're in, what they're doing, these are available at the top. And you actually have example iframes ready for you in your module template. So for everyone who used the template as their basis for their new modules, you'll see that you have an example iframe, which doesn't look, oh, it actually does look like something. All right, so we have stream stats here. So you have an example iframe there that would be easy for you to change. And if you are wondering about how to get to pages, you would click content and then pages. And then these are the tabs that are available across the top of every unit. Let's see. And I believe that is everything that I had planned to discuss.
Jenny, maybe I can also add that those iframes, sometimes they are useful and sometimes they may become, not that useful. So, if you want to give the students the immersive experience of staying on the web page and not having to be directed to a different place, that's a good use of it. If you want on purpose to tell them this is where you need to go to find that information, because in the future they need to know what's the source of that information or that app, then you probably just can embed the hyperlink and let them open it completely outside of HydroLearn. Sometimes you can also insert Google Maps, and so instead of putting an image to show where the watershed is, you can actually insert, and maybe Jenny, you can click on the Google Map as one of the pages, right? I believe there you can link to the location of your watershed, for example, or so this way, you can build this in Google Map very easily, and they have a live vision, sorry, a live version of the watershed rather than being a static image. You know, things like that. So you can play a lot with these iframes, and right. So you can zoom in and out just like any Google Map image, but they have the watershed there, and so.
Let's see, I think there was a good question in the chat about the different views that I was flipping between. So let's see here. If I have made some changes and I have not published them, what I'm going to do is select preview. If I want to see what has already been published, I'll click view live. So that's why let me close all of these. I'll show you the difference. So view live is everything that was published prior to the changes that I just made in our little demonstration. So that's why this looks nice and clean, is because I have not messed that up. However, if I do preview, it's going to show you published and unpublished changes. So we'll see all of the tinkering I've been doing down here. And remember, for you, your modules are effectively hidden from our course listing. So you can publish to your heart's content. You can decide not to publish. It makes no difference for you right now. So I wouldn't stress about this too much until after your module is like live, being used by students, available on our course listing page and things like that. But of course, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, I'm happy to answer them for you.
We have access to the recordings, right, of these sessions, so we could go back and reference them.
Yes, and I will also say that HydroLearn 101 has everything Jenny has talked about so far, and it's portioned into little tiny chunks with screenshots and shorter clips. So if you have a question about one of these things, it's actually easier for you to go through HydroLearn 101 and look at those tutorials than it would be to kind of scroll through this 7-hour video recording.
And also, everything I just did is in the slides from today.
But that being said, we know there's a lot of steps and it's easy to get confused. So if you, as we're working in our next session, Jenny, will you pull up the slides for me, please? As we're kind of working over the next hour, if you have any questions, feel free to, call one of us for help. And more than likely, I'll call Jenny in to help if it's a technical question. But so that's kind of, we're always here to support you with that. And tomorrow, Jenny's going to introduce you to the rest of the technical team. We'll have some additional students helping us on the technical side of things. Haroon, I see your hands up.
Yes, thank you, Jenny. I have a question about iframe versus video components. So I know we can add videos using iframe as well. So, but is there a difference in the option that is available to directly add a video as a component?
So my suggestion, just for best practices, is to include your videos as iframes. And I say this because if a transcript is available, it will consistently pull the transcript from YouTube to this website. Sometimes the video component doesn't do it. I'm not sure why, but more consistently, if a transcript is available, inserting your video as an iframe is just the best practice. It's what I do when I'm working on modules. And we have more details about that in HydroLearn 101 too. And we'll probably go over it at some point in this workshop.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't worry.
All right. So what we'd like you to do over the next hour is to create a learning activity around your high cognitive demand task. If you're still working on fleshing out your high cognitive demand task, creating the learning activity may help you do that. If you don't feel ready to put it in a learning activity format yet, that's okay. So there is the learning activity template that Jenny showed you in HydroLearn. We have that same template for you as a Google Doc. So you can choose to use the template in whichever platform you want. If you want to do it in the Google Doc first and then copy and paste it into HydroLearn, you could do it that way. Or if you want to open a learning activity template in HydroLearn, as Jenny showed us, then you can feel free to do it that way as well. Please be sure to think about all the components of a learning activity that we talked about, that we saw in those 2 different examples that we looked at. And then the last reminder for this next hour of work time is to get your one slide, your 60-second slide, into the 60-second slides slideshow, which is in the fellows folder as well. So I'll just drop the link to the 60-second slides show presentation in the chat as well. So I see some teams did that before the break, and I'm sure some of you will do it now. But just those are your 2 tasks. You're working on creating a learning activity and you're working on your 60-second slide. Any questions before we go into our breakout rooms?
Sorry for asking this. Hate to be that person, but could you give us a 2-second overview of what goes in the 60-second slide?
Oh, great question. I think I was answering this question for some people in their rooms, and sometimes I forget if I've told the whole group or not. So think of that 60-second slides as your elevator speech. If you got trapped in an elevator and you were trying to sell someone to use your module, what would you say to them in 60 seconds? So you can center that around the topic or how you plan to use it or the high cognitive demand task. You can center it however you want, but you're trying to sell your module. Obviously not really sell, no one's going to buy it, but get other people interested and excited. All right, any other questions? Thanks, Nate. All right, so we have 54 minutes then to work in our groups. Remember to take a break as you need it. We'll come back together at the top of the hour, whatever country you're in. All right, Jenny has opened the rooms for you. Martin, it looks like Astor may have gotten dropped off the call. Turn the recording back on. That needs directions to me. Do I open this link, Jenny? I need to close it here.
Yeah, you have to use the link. I think you have to click to advance this one, and then after it does 60 seconds.
Oops, so now the first one's getting 60 seconds.
Yeah, so now 60 seconds.
I'm kind of testing it to see. I feel like it's been more than 60 seconds.
No, it hasn't.
I tested it with 3 seconds because I have no patience for that.
It really hasn't been 60 seconds yet?
No.
60 seconds is a long time.
I worked in radio for several years, and you can say a lot of nothing in 60 seconds.
You
A lot
get
of nothing in like 10 seconds.
of dead air. Well, there's no way that this is not 60 seconds.
No, I think I don't think it's 60. There you go.
60 seconds.
No, I'm doing it now.
Oh, now it's, oh.
No, that's me.
Okay, we can just, why don't we get a watch going? We can start the presentations, and then if it doesn't automatically progress, maybe you can just hit next every 60 seconds.
All right, that sounds like a lot of balls to juggle, but I'm up. Yes. All right, so everyone's back. Hopefully that was a productive working session for you. We are, I wanted to kind of give you a heads up of what the rest of this hackathon is going to look like. So yesterday and today we had these kind of 3 sessions, right? The morning session, the afternoon, and the evening, depending, of course, on your time zone. And, you know, if you're CINA, it's middle of the night, more middle of the night, less middle of the night. But so starting tomorrow, we're going to shift that. We were trying to give you like bite-sized chunks and a little thing to do in these first 2 days. But starting tomorrow, we're going to move to a 2-session structure. So we'll have about an hour and a half in the morning. I absolutely reserve the right to make that 2 hours if we're having good conversations and it needs to go a little long. So that 1.5 is a ballpark. Then you'll have a good chunk of partner work time. Teams last year that used this time wisely had really a lot built into their modules by the time the workshop was over. And then we'll wrap up always at the end. Session 2 will be like our ending sessions the last 2 days, where we've shared in content groups, gotten feedback. It's kind of this iterative way to talk about things. So that'll be the structure we'll follow for the rest of the workshop, except for this Friday. So this Friday is a half day. So we're going to go for 3 hours this Friday. So whatever your start time is, just think 3 hours later is when we'll be wrapping up. All right, so just wanted to give you all that overview. We are now going to go into the 60-second module. And let's see, I'm going to open it again. Where is my open link? Thank you. All right, 60-second modules, and I don't actually believe that this is going to work, so I'm also going to time it on my watch. Hopefully you remember where you were in the order of the slides. So when the person before you comes up, just be ready to unmute. We don't want you to lose seconds in the unmuting process. I'm going to leave myself muted so that I don't make accidental weird noises that throw you off. All right.
Well, I think it'll work if you hover in the bottom left corner. Yeah, hit the 3 dots. Autoplay. Okay, it is playing, and it is every minute. In theory, this is going to work. But if it doesn't, I take full blame. Okay, good luck, everyone.
All right, I'm going to mute whoever's up first. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
I guess we're up first. Bhaskar and Starry and Eileen now. I don't know if I have that much to say to start because the first part of our module is all Maruti, where we're challenging students to consider the effects of land use change on hydrology. So if you want to weigh in there, we didn't practice a polished 60 seconds.
Yes, the students will be downloading the satellite imagery and looking at a time 1 and time 2 imagery and identify the areas where there is a maximum land cover change and what type of change, so that they can actually come up with the best management practices to reduce the flooding and so on. And then we'll also use that information in the storm water management calculator, which Alyssa can actually explain on that.
Yeah, and so, once the students have really thoughtfully considered how land use change is occurring, then we're still kind of working through how that's going to affect hydrology, either using a stormwater calculator or looking at some USGS flood data, or maybe doing a PC swim model.
Nice. Next up.
Okay, so maybe following up on that, the idea here is to do some low impact development design using PC Swim. So students would have prerequisite requirements on some previous modules where they would have learned how to run PC Swim. And in this module, they would actually design a bioretention cell or a vegetated swale and design that LID given certain set of criteria. And then we would ask them to run PC Swim to evaluate the hydrologic impacts. And we would add on running PC Swim to evaluate the water quality or pollutant removal effectiveness. And then the idea was to have one student design a bioretention cell and another student design a vegetated swale. And then they would share their designs and compare the effectiveness of those two designs.
So Asta and I, we have been concerned about climate variability and the impact on water resources. So we all know that when we look into the future, climate change will affect temperature, but probably the larger impact will be on water resources. So that's why it's a topic of large concern. Students will pick a place anywhere on the globe that they care about, where they were born, that they like to travel or have seen. And they look at historical data and they look at climate change projections and projections on short time scales, like on the ENSO decadal time scale. You see some graphs here on the right side. So there's a record for New York City, see historic records, and you see a trend line, which is sort of the long-term climate change trend. There's a decadal time scale and the interannual variability. And then they will use a simple hydrological model to predict the impact on local water resources and develop strategies for mitigation and adaptations.
Perfect 60 seconds, nice.
This is our work, Ian Pattison and I. We're focusing on the water cycle in the Anthropocene, which is really a critical review of the water cycle. As many of us know, the students are introduced to the water cycle early on in their education. However, that introduction to the water cycle is often less than accurate and complete. Specifically, the current state of our water is misrepresented because human influence to the water cycle is often omitted or minimized. And we often don't talk about it in a manner that pays a respect to societal issues like droughts and flooding. And so we're going to use an instructional narrative, which is this, that as part of a global geoscience firm, the students are going to be leading a cooperative interdisciplinary program focused on correctly interpreting and applying the underlying principles of the water cycle. Students will be exposed to public outreach, stakeholder partnerships, and management elements that demonstrate human influence on the water cycle across time and space.
All right, so yes, I'm unmuted now. So this module will be on similitude and dimensional analysis. Similitude and dimensional analysis are fundamental concepts for many problems that are related to fluid mechanics and hydrology. And we believe that it requires more attention in the curriculum. And for that, I think we need to also present the applications of these concepts. So these principles are important for various model studies, especially hydraulic model studies. For example, pipe flows, spillways, sediment transport, scar erosion around structures, and so on. So we will make this evident to the students and also related to both hydrology and fluid mechanics. So we have various student learning outcomes. I'll just skip those. Seems like I'm out of minutes. So basically here is an example. So this is a scar. For example, we'll probably present I'll stop here.
All right, this is Sam. I hope everybody can hear me. Let me turn my video as well. Yeah, so Alex and I are looking at saltwater intrusion. We're both on the East Coast, and we do work in the coastal aquifers. And one of the issues that is being seen all over the world on coastal areas is we're seeing an increase in the intrusion of salt water into our freshwater aquifers. And this, of course, is made worse by increasing in population as the demand for freshwater increases. We're seeing that increase, but also as climate change, as the climate changes and we're seeing sea level rises, we're seeing more of this. So the idea behind this module is really simply to introduce the students to the concepts of saltwater intrusion, learn about aquifers, and yeah, I guess that's it.
All right, thank you. So this is Haroon. Nate and I are working on the module titled Urban Micro Watershed Hydrograph Creation and Analysis. And this module is to support student learning of discharge hydrograph for urban environments where we can have significant flooding. So students will develop a hydrograph for a point of interest and do the analysis of that hydrograph for accuracy, as well as how can it be reduced, the peak discharge can be reduced. The module provides reading materials and videos, as well as hands-on materials, as well as learn by doing and check your understanding opportunities for students to be ready before they move on to the next step.
Hi, so Luis, so our group is motivated by the idea of looking at drought in the east slope of the Sierra Nevadas. And in particular, this is motivated by a real world example in which the California Wildlife Conservation Board has asked for recommendation about how to increase summer stream flow from small forested headwater streams in order to meet the needs of downstream water users, aquatic ecosystems, recreational users, agriculture, and municipalities. To help address this overarching need, students will quantify historical seasonality, drought periods, and temporal trends in point data, precipitation and streamflow observations, use RESIS, which is an eco-hydrological model, to estimate components of the terrestrial water budget and gain experience evaluating model uncertainty and goodness of fit. And we'll use a scenario analysis to answer the client request for recommendations on management strategies for land use changes and management of these forested watersheds.
In this module, we will leverage remote sensing information from satellites and drones to irrigation activities. And we aim that the student is able to acquire the respective remote sensing information, to process it, and then interpret the different the variation that is found in these images and how these variations are related to the crop, to the irrigation and crop management conditions.
So Zara and I are working on this module, which is on groundwater contamination, an issue in Sweden in particular, like anywhere else in the world. So there's a demand from the public and private sector for this. And we're going to prepare last year undergraduate students to be able to have hands-on experience working with the ModFlow software to develop groundwater models, simulate them, and be able to analyze and interpret the outputs and then communicate the results, being able to understand the fundamental assumptions underlying the model and how it can give rise to uncertainties that are important to communicate with the stakeholders. And for that, we would have an authentic problem of a contaminated region around Stockholm city.
Sebnem and we are working on the broad topic of groundwater chemistry. We will name the baby after it's born, like Melissa said. We are probably the only group working on chemistry because chemists have solutions. Sorry, it's a long day. But our main learning goal is to basically answer the question, if you heard of the phrase, it's in the water. So what is in the water, right? So the students, we are providing opportunity for students to explore the chemistry of water, what makes groundwater quality as it is, different ways to represent the water. One example is given here, that's the Piper trilinear diagram. And they will use that to predict what the geological processes are in that environment. And finally, see if the water will be suitable for drinking and irrigation purposes.
Nice. I think that was our last slide, right? So let's open up the chat for conversation now that we've kind of had this rapid flow through the modules. First, I'll just remind you, of course, that you have access to all these slides in the Google Deck, which you know about because you put your slide there. But our goal with this was really to get you some exposure to hear all of the great ideas that others are doing. And so I want to open the floor. I'm actually going to stop sharing so that we can all look at each other in the gallery view. And so, yeah, what is something that came up for you, something you saw that looks really cool, maybe a module you want to use sometime, maybe there's a question you have for someone. So feel free to either unmute or put your ideas in the chat, but this is meant to be more of kind of an open forum discussion about what you saw and what you liked. Feel an incredible desire to sing Jeopardy right now.
I noticed that we had a couple of modules similar to what Nate and I are working on. So urban environment with stormwater problem and hydrology. So I think we could even have a little group of modules that are related to each other and building upon each other possibly.
Arun, I would love a little clarification of what a micro watershed is.
Well, a micro watershed is a watershed that is very small, and they come in urban areas more so. If I'm interested in the water contributing to the road in front of my house or a small drain inlet next to an intersection, when we develop a watershed for that, it will be most likely a parking lot and a couple of houses, and that's a micro watershed.
I had a question for the group who did the ModFlow exercise and with the contaminated groundwater in Sweden. I've tried to use ModFlow myself, and I've also tried to use it in teaching, but I find it's a tremendous, it's pretty steep learning curve. And I was wondering, are there new approaches of using ModFlow that are easier for students to absorb, that you can actually use the model within a 10 or 15-hour module? Or do you expect students to know ModFlow before they come into this module?
That's actually a pretty good point. So we're not expecting them to know anything about ModFlow before. And what we did was we started following the ModFlow help, going through one of the sort of examples they had on the help. And maybe for someone who had some experience modeling, it wasn't that slow. But yeah, that's something that we have to keep in mind. And I'm not sure if we can keep it under 10 hours for this module. It's going to be probably a bit longer than a regular module because of the nature of ModFlow. But what we're considering now is that maybe instead of having 2 assignments, we would just have the one authentic problem for the entire module, rather than having 2, which is the current setup, to allow more time for the student to get on with the learning curve of the software.
Sina, is your learning objective for them to learn how to set up a model in ModFlow, or more to do something with it?
To be able to learn how to use the help and the ModFlow to do something, because they're the last year undergrads, they may want to do their thesis with the groundwater stuff. So being able to become independent with the software is actually one of the learning objectives that we have here. But to be able to answer the questions of the particular site that's for the assignment is also an objective. So if they can do it, which is our hope that they can do it, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, regarding the Emma's question, so I would say yes, this is one of the learning objectives, that to be able to set up ModFlow for a catchment in the Stockholm region.
I was very intrigued by Josh and his group when they had public outreach as part of their student exposure. I thought that was great. I was just wanting to hear more how you plan to achieve that on a practical scale.
It's just an exercise where the students will prepare and select appropriate water cycles that they will be presenting at a community, a community outreach event. And so we figured as NSF and other funding agencies are building outreach into everything, that it was a good idea to start to expose them to that, to think about how they can translate some of these fundamental scientific principles in a way that is widely understood. So that's the idea. It still needs some maturing, but we're going in that direction anyway.
No, that's great. I mean, I always wanted to include some part of it of public outreach, but I always found it challenging on how to integrate it into an online mode of teaching. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for the interest.
I like that module as well because it challenges conventional textbook knowledge, which I think is new and different.
Thanks. Hopefully we don't go too far. We just go far enough. Or maybe we do go far. Hopefully we do push it far enough.
All right. So I think this was a really rich conversation, and I'm glad that you all got to see a little bit of each other's work. I'm going to pause that conversation now to pull us back together to let you know what we're hoping to see from you, where we're going next. So we're hoping that you'll have some time before we get started tomorrow to start to create your learning activity in HydroLearn. If you at least play with adding that component and typing your things in, then if there are any bugs or hiccups, then while we're all together tomorrow, you can ask those questions. So that's what we're hoping that you'll find some time to work on if you haven't already. I know many of you already have, and that's excellent. We're going to go into our breakout rooms and to share with the content groups. Jenny, are you making those groups for us? And as you're doing that, these are the things that, again, I mentioned the review process. These are the things we're going to be looking for when we look at your learning activities in the review process. We certainly don't expect them all to be perfectly laid out now as you just started thinking about your learning activities today. But as you're sharing in your content groups, think about if the directions are clear, if results reporting templates have been added. I'm sure, I would doubt that they have yet, but is there a place for that? Is there an authentic task? Is there a constructive alignment? So these ideas that Dan went over earlier, these are the ones we want you to focus on in your feedback. We only have about 30 minutes in your content groups. So you'll want to, content group leaders, guides, you'll want to divide the time up appropriately for that. Are there any questions? So, and then once we're done in the content groups, again, that's it for the day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Are there any other questions before we go into the content groups?
Can I just say that hopefully you have some sympathy for us that maybe we can't work a lot outside of those 7 hours we're already working on this. You know, the downside of having this on Zoom is that we are at the places that we are living and working. So there's some other stuff that happens in our lives as well. And, you know, after the 7 hours, I can't think about this anymore. So please understand that, you know, we have, I think, plenty of time in those sessions to work on it, but I'm not going to work on this overnight.
Yeah, so that's certainly fair, Martin. Everyone has to make the calls that are best for them. And absolutely, we have grace for that. All right, Jenny, are we ready to open the groups?
Ready when you are.
All right, let's go ahead out into our groups.
Are we just dismissing from there? Are we coming back here?
No, we'll dismiss from there.
Okay.
The PIs return.
What's up?
I was asking Melissa, should the PIs return afterwards? Have we settled day 3 slides?
We have not settled day 3 slides, so it would be great if we could return to settle those slides.
Okay.
Melissa, can you have some, what did he say? Some
grace.
Yeah. I sympathize with them. This is a lot.
Yeah. And they've been really super on task, as I feel like.
Yes.